Everyone in Baker City knows about Leo Adler, and not only because he lived here for almost a century.
Leo Adler was the type of a guy that he had the city of Baker in his heart, and he'd do practically anything he could to make Baker better.
He was a very friendly person. He liked to talk to people. He was quite a humorous man.
Leo died in 1993, but his friends can still picture him clearly.
He was probably 20 or 30 pounds overweight, balding at the time that I began to know him. Always had a pair of glasses that never quite seemed to fit.
Well, he was a bachelor. I guess I would put it that way. Leo was a dyed-in-the-wool bachelor and dressed as any lifelong bachelor might dress.
He wore suits that were a bit outdated, not commensurate with a man that was worth $22 million.
He modestly called himself a magazine specialist. In fact, he played an enormous role in bringing news, literature, and popular culture to the rural West. And he focused his civic good deeds and philanthropy on the place he lived.
He loved Baker. I mean, he loved Baker so fiercely that it was almost unreal.
Yet only after his death did the people of Baker City learn the degree of his devotion.
The Leo Adler story is a story of a man who started with very humble beginnings, who worked hard, who was incredibly dedicated to the people he worked with and to his community, and at the end of the day, when all was said and done, left a legacy for that community that, in my humble estimation, probably is unparalleled anywhere else in the world.
Funding for Oregon Experience is provided by the James F. and Marion L. Miller Foundation, the Ann and Bill Swindell's Charitable Trust, the Oregon Cultural Trust, and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Baker City and Baker are the same place. It started out as Baker City. Then, in 1911, local folks changed the name to simply Baker. In 1989, they changed it back. People here still use both names when talking about their town.
Welcome to the Adler House. Come on in. I'll show you around. Leo Adler was born in Baker City, and his family moved into this house in 1899, and he lived 94 years in the same house.
Leo's father, Carl Adler, came from Germany in the 1870s to Astoria, Oregon. There, he opened a book and stationery shop, and he married a Salem girl, Laura Hirsch, the child of other German Jewish immigrants. The Adlers had a daughter, Teresa, and expanded their store to include a variety of fine things. He renamed it the Crystal Palace.
And he sold everything beautiful, from china to silver, stemware, musical instruments, jewelry, and watches.
Business was good in the bustling coastal town, so their friends were surely puzzled when, in 1887, the Adlers moved their family and their store to Baker City. Baker City was far inland, a Wild West town of grizzled miners and burly loggers. But Laura had a sister here, and Carl Adler had an eye for opportunities.
There were many elegant houses in Baker, Oregon at that time. There was a lot of money because of the gold and the timber and the agriculture. This was the third largest city in the state, behind Portland and Astoria.
Baker City was booming with new buildings and businesses of every sort, and the wealth attracted a very diverse lot of people. Dozens of mines, small to very large, surrounded the town. They bored into mountainsides, leveled entire hills, and dredged through the meadows. They also produced fortunes in gold. With the mines came thousands of newcomers, hundreds of them from China.
At the same time, in the timber industry, there would be Belgians and Norwegian, Scandinavian that came, and they worked primarily in the woods. The cattle industry were Irish, Dutch people. Then, of course, with the sheep, they had Basques and Spanish.
Members of the local Jewish community owned a number of clothing, furniture, and other shops downtown. To these, Carl Adler added the Crystal Palace, selling jewelry, books, and musical instruments. Once they settled in, the Adlers had a son, Sanford, and in 1895, they welcomed a second boy, Leo.
This is the family parlor of the Adler house, and they spent a great deal of time here. This is a beautiful piano, and this is the one that Teresa played so well. She was an accomplished pianist. If they got tired of that, there was the old record player, the old Victrola, and they had a whole collection of records. There's a lot of books in the house. They show a lot of use. Many of them have been read many times. Leo started delivering the Saturday Evening Post and the Ladies' Home Journal, and he also delivered newspapers.
Leo Adler's business career began at age 9.
They used to advertise, fill this coupon, they'll send you 10 free Saturday Evening Posts. And that's when it sold for a nickel, and we got to keep that money. And then they gave prizes on, I won a Shetland pony and a bicycle, and then I gradually worked up a big route, delivering to customers every week.
He would meet the train when they'd come through and go through the train and sell them to the passengers. He also sold the Oregonian and the Democrat Herald.
San Francisco earthquake was 1905, wasn't it?
1906.
1906. But I didn't come to school that day because I was out selling the extra paper.
Baker City had a row of brothels, and young Leo would offer his papers to men leaving through the back doors.
And he said it's amazing the tips that he got when he met certain people that were fairly influential coming down the steps early in the morning.
His early success earned this tribute in a national magazine. By high school, he had expanded his markets far beyond Baker City.
People saw me selling Saturday Evening Post on the street, and people come in from other communities, farming communities, and wondered why they couldn't buy the Saturday Evening Post in their hometown.
I think he went to Utah first and visited little stores and businesses there. And then he went into Wyoming and Idaho and Eastern Oregon. And he ended up with a few dealers in Nebraska and Colorado. He had 7 states that he eventually had businesses in, and he had over 2,500 customers. He was breaking new ground with it because those stores had just been without magazines and had no way of getting them until he started out. The story's told that he used to take another young man with him when he'd travel around to get new dealers, and he'd send this young man in the store and ask for a magazine, and they'd say, well, we're sorry, but we don't have magazines. Then a few hours later, Leo would go in and say, how would you like to handle magazines? And the store owner was said, well, that's unusual. I had a young man in here just a while ago who wanted to buy a magazine. He says, maybe I better take them.
Leo grew to become the biggest single user of the Baker City Post Office and one of the largest magazine reshippers in the western U.S.
His business was to receive from the East all the publications, including magazine subscriptions, and then repackage them and then serve retail outlets throughout this particular area.
Popular magazines were a primary medium for information and ideas. Leo opened new frontiers of distribution into parts of the country, especially rural areas, which had been ignored by the publishers back east. He hired his first employee in 1921, and over time, his staff grew to 30 people, mostly women.
I worked for him in 1947 when I came home from college the first summer. And I worked every summer while I was going to college. He was a pretty good boss. He was real easygoing. I'd known Leo Adler ever since I was a little kid because my aunt worked for him. She started out with him in the business, Zella Smurthwaite. She lived right next door to where my folks lived, and he was down there quite a bit.
Leo never married, though he reportedly did propose to Zella.
They were really good friends, and his mother really liked Zella. He was always urging him to marry her. Well, of course, my Aunt Zella, she liked her freedom, I guess.
Leo had several loyal, long-term employees, but none as long-term as Zella, who worked for him more than 55 years.
Oh, yeah, they went out to dinner a lot, and he went down and see her at her house. They had a good relationship all their life. They were sort of like an old married couple.
Jews were a small minority in Baker City, but throughout his life, Leo said that his religion was never an issue.
And we've always were accepted in schools and dance clubs and country clubs, and we've never had any problems here. We've never had any religious strife here.
Leo visited the publishers of the magazines and periodicals that he distributed. He would travel to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York.
Leo then had a very direct connection with all of the major publications that were following the trends of what was happening during the 20th century.
Leo read 5 newspapers every day, local and national, front page to back.
He would always ask me about, have you read this article in the Wall Street Journal? Well, I was, with 5 kids in practicing law, I was having trouble making it. I was just having trouble keeping up with the day. And I'd say, well, no, Leo, I missed that one.
With that basic daily routine, he was very astute in relation to what was happening nationally.
In the 1920s, Leo sensed that hard financial times lay ahead. He negotiated the exclusive distribution rights for a line of easy-to-use home sewing patterns. He foresaw that people would continue to buy magazines, a very affordable luxury. And so during the Depression, and again during World War II, his business flourished. Leo Adler was the first to bring the sporting news, the Bible of baseball, to the rural Northwest. He introduced Captain Billy's Whiz Bang and Captain Marvel comics. Leo Adler earned nationwide renown in the magazine business, and he was making a lot of money. But he did little to flaunt his status or wealth. One of his best friends, Henry Levenger, owned a local drugstore.
Leo used to go in there and was talking to Henry one day, and he looked kind of, like not a person with the money he had. And there was a drug salesman in there, and after Leo left, he went up to Henry and he says, "Who was that? Some guy that was in here giving you the touch, wanted you to give him some money?" And Henry just laughed and laughed, and he says, "No," he says, "that guy could buy and sell me." He says he had more money than anybody in town.
This is the master bedroom and sitting room, and this is where the family would gather after dinner. Mrs. Adler would be doing her darning and sewing. They would be listening to the radio, and they would have a cozy fire in the fireplace. I think this is the most beautiful room in the house.
Leo's father died in 1918. Sanford took over the family store, while their sister, Teresa, pursued a teaching career. Leo's mother died in 1933, and here is where his home life took a curious turn.
Leo grew up in this part of the house, and all of the bedrooms for the family were up here at that time. But after his mother died, Leo never came upstairs again, and in fact retreated to the back 4 rooms of the house. I think it just got to be too much. There was so much to do, he hadn't a clue how to start doing it, and so he just decided to ignore it.
The home is huge, and the rest of it he just let go and decay. The plaster was falling, it was dirty, it was almost dangerous to walk through there.
Leo was not a handyman.
I remember one time that I came in his house and he says, "Bob, my refrigerator's quit me." And I said, "Leo," I said, "I can hear it running." I reached up and opened the door and with one hand and caught the other one because that off the ice cube container would have fallen in the floor if I hadn't caught it. And I said, "It's running," because I can hear it, and I said, "Everything's cold in here." And what had happened is that light had burnt out. And the light wouldn't come on, so he thought the refrigerator didn't work anymore.
11825, code 6, 105 North Avenue, 52.
He had a scanner, so he kept that scanner on so he could hear about every police call and every wreck or anything in there. And that always would be going loud, just blast in there. And then if you were talking to him, well, he'd hush you up and say, wait a minute, till I listen to this.
He had an unconventional living arrangement, but Leo was not reclusive.
He could walk all over town, and he got to know everybody that way. He'd walk down the street, and he could talk to everybody.
If the city council acted in a manner that Leo didn't agree with, we'd find out about it. And I was unfortunate enough to have antagonized Leo on a couple of occasions.
In time, Leo Adler came to be known as Mr. Baker.
If there was ever any fund drive in Baker, Leo was always the special gifts chairman. And he had a good advantage in doing that because he was always there first with his money. If it benefited Baker, he was there.
In legislative matters, Leo was Baker's unofficial lobbyist.
If there was a bill that affected Baker, Leo would call Senator Hatfield's office or somebody like that.
After World War II, he brought air service to Baker. There's no question in my mind that air service that Baker enjoyed at the time and Northeast Oregon enjoyed was because of Leo Adler.
Anthony Lakes. When we put Anthony Lakes in the ski area up here, Leo made certain that we had adequate money to go down and visit with the governor, and actually we brought the governor over here and took him up in a snowcat.
He was the main force behind the town's baseball fields and the Baker City Sports Center. Without Leo's help, Baker's 18-hole golf course might still have just 9. In the midst of the Great Depression, he persuaded the national magazine publishers to hold a convention in Baker, a big shot in the arm for the local economy. And over the years, he helped bring everything from Elks conventions to sports tournaments to famous entertainers, all to small-town, off-the-beaten-path Baker City.
He made big contributions to when they built a new swimming pool and when they built a new hospital. And about every Christmas, he'd send all the churches in Baker a cash gift.
He gave $1,000 to each of the churches here. I accused him once of kind of covering all of these bases.
When Chief Bob Young hosted the Oregon State Fire Chiefs Convention in Baker, Leo helped ensure its success.
Opening night of the conference, we set up this booth there, and we call it Leo Adler Snow Cone Booth. That's how we call it. And they stocked up on this flavored vodka. There was red and green, and regular bourbon, of course, would be yellow. And all they had to do was to walk up there, and they had those little glasses free on Leo Adler. And that really got the conference going.
Leo was not active in party politics, but he certainly knew a lot of politicians.
I think his politics were Leo politics. He was, in religion, I think he was ecumenical, and in politics, I think he was bipartisan. When a candidate came to town, I never saw him take him around to different areas and say, this is my candidate. But not one single politician came to this town without checking in with Leo. Not one.
I don't know if I should tell this or not, but they were Republicans. He and his brother were Republicans. And then when his brother gave up the music store, he wanted to be the postmaster, and there was going to be a new postmaster appointed. So he went and registered Democrat because it was a Democratic period of time. And I think Leo did too, because he wanted to support his brother. They were very supportive of each other.
Well, this is Leo's office. These are his filing cabinets and his desk that he used. And this is one of the 4 rooms that Leo lived in after he closed off the rest of the house. Leo was passionate about 2 things in particular. He was passionate about the fire department, and if they needed anything, they got it from Leo.
Horses still powered the Baker City Fire Department when Leo was a child. The firemen and the equipment changed over the years, but his fascination with them endured. He watched the men fight countless local fires. He bought several new vehicles for them, too, including at least 5 ambulances. When he was out of town, Leo often phoned the station to chat and would order steak dinners for the firemen on duty.
All we had to do was just call the hotel, and they'd fix those steaks any way we wanted them. We'd have to go pick them up in the ambulance, take them over to the fire station, eat them.
Leo's other passion was baseball. He attended 23 consecutive World Series.
The pitch is low, down by the batter's feet.
Leo went one time to the World Series in St. Louis, and he always stayed at the Hilton wherever he went. Well, when he got to St. Louis, the Hilton Hotel had screwed up his reservation, and they had nothing. They didn't even have a closet for him. So he got in a taxi and he started driving around town, and there was nowhere for him to stay. Everything was no vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy. And then he spied a hospital, and he said, well, just pull in here for a little bit. So he went in and said to the hospital registrar, I just want to rent one of your rooms for a couple of days. Well, she said, you can't do that. There's just sick people in here. You have to have a doctor admit you to the hospital. He said, well, give me a list of the doctors then. So Leo stayed at the hospital. And he said the food wasn't bad and the nurses were really pretty.
I think Leo liked to have a good time, and I think he did have a good time. Never to the point that it affected his health. He didn't mind going down to the Elks Club and having a couple drinks with the boys.
What he would do is, with very few exceptions, he'd go in and he'd have double old granddad with a water bag.
In this regard, Leo's support for the fire department came back around.
He could not drink. He drank old granddad, and if he had a couple of those, Katie barred the door. It was lights out. So here comes the fire department. You know, the ambulance comes in with a stretcher and they take Leo.
Anytime Leo got out of hand, they always called the fire department. It was just routine that they knew that the fire department took care of Leo Adler, and that's about the extent of it.
I remember one Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which, we were driving down Main Street with our 3 girls, and they were quite small at the time. And the fireman used to take good care of him when he'd have a problem. And as we went by his house, these 2 men were taking him in, and our girls saw him, and they says, oh, look, there's Leo. He looks like he's sick. Maybe we better stop and help him. And, of course, Ralph and I knew what the problem was, but we says, oh, those men will take care of him. So they did.
Heck, why not call the ambulance and have him drive you home? He was doing the responsible thing. He had a designated driver. There you go. That was Leo, always ahead of the times.
Leo Adler was ahead of his time in some ways. His business sense and ability to foresee trends made him wealthy. His vision of how to develop and diversify Baker City's economy helped keep the community viable. And he bought lots of stocks and bonds.
He was not a sophisticated investor. He would listen to some people who he had confidence in, and they would say, well, you ought to be buying some of this stock. And so he bought some at a very low price, thought nothing more of it, and stuck it in his safety deposit box and never looked back.
We were pretty amazed when we found out how much he was really worth when he finally died.
To nearly everyone's surprise, Leo Adler left an estate worth some $22 million. More surprising still, he had bequeathed nearly all of it to the people of Baker in the form of a unique endowment. In its first 12 years, the Leo Adler Foundation paid out $19 million in college scholarships and community grants. Nearly all the recipients live in Baker County, population 18,000. Meanwhile, investments have increased the endowment to nearly $30 million. Leo Adler intended for his legacy to serve his community forever.
Well, I've traveled a lot, and I don't think any town the size of 10,000 can be as friendly as Baker.
In November 1993, Leo Adler was 98 years old. His health was failing fast.
And I went by the nursing home to see him. But on this particular day, you could tell he knew death was imminent. And so we talked a little bit, and it was hard for him. And Leo looked out of the window and said, "Aren't you glad you moved back to Baker?" And then he said, Don't you just love this town?" That's the last thing he said to me.
There's more about Leo Adler on Oregon Experience Online. To learn more or to order a DVD of the show, visit opb.org. Funding for Oregon Experience is provided by the James F. and Marion L. Miller Foundation, the Ann and Bill Swindells Charitable Trust, the Oregon Cultural Trust, and from viewers like you. Thank you.